Here we go. Welcome to another episode of the Franchise Academy. My name is Tom Scarta. I'm excited to have a compatriot from years ago, Rocky Romanella, with me, who worked with a little outfit called the UPS store back in the day. And I think everyone probably knows the UPS store. But Rocky brings almost 50 years of supply chain management, logistics, transportation, retail, all to UPS, and now helps small businesses as a consultant. Rocky writes for a little magazine called Forbes, and has a really cool column there. And he actually helped UPS by rebranding and revolutioning a $9 billion retail operation, converting old mailboxes, etc., to UPS stores. So we're going to talk a lot about that. And also, Rocky helped UPS go towards healthcare and actually coin the phrase "It's not a patient, it's a package," which I think is awesome. He is the CEO of 360 Management Services, and he is a speaker at many conferences in the business world, and he can help you in your small business as well. I want to welcome Rocky to the show. Good
Hey,
day.
Tom. Hey, Tom. Pleasure to be on the show with you, and thanks for the opportunity to speak with your audience.
I am excited to have you. So, um, I know UPS is like a big thing, but before that, what were you doing that actually got you to UPS?
Actually, when I graduated high school, my goal was to be a high school history teacher and a baseball coach. My dad, rest his soul, said to me, "One of my kids is going to go to college. It's you. We don't have any money."
You know,
So I
UPS
worked
is
my
like a
way,
big.
yeah,
I'm so,
worked my way through college. So working for UPS part time. So it was a great part time job.
yes, great, great business. I was in logistics a little bit for myself, kind of in my early days, driving a truck and working in a warehouse. Very different than UPS. It was more surgical supplies that we delivered to nursing homes. But it was a good start for me. So I understand how important logistics are. If you think about it, if there's no logistics, if things are not being shipped, there's nothing that's going to be on the shelf anywhere.
Well, I
And
think unfortunately people learned logistics the hard way during the whole COVID because supply chain and logistics became the buzzword of every excuse from everything that didn't go well or didn't work well. But it is such an important part of commerce and such an important part of logistics. So I think that when you think about I think sometimes people fail to realize how things get from point A to point B, and so that's logistics. But just to finish up there, so I got a chance to work at UPS part time. They had a promotion from within policy, and so I took advantage of that and became a driver. I was a driver actually in Plainfield, New Jersey, and then at that time, everyone had to be a driver before going into full time supervision. Absolutely enjoyed being a driver, and then the rest is 30 years in management at the UPS.
wow, it's amazing. So, so you're separated from UPS now, and you have your own firm, or are you still with UPS?
No, I retired from UPS. I actually retired from UPS. I was at 55. I had 36 years. Then I was recruited to be the CEO of a telecom company. We built cell towers, upgraded cell towers, did installation work, things like that. We sold that company, and then I started my own small business, 360 Management Services. We focus on, as you said before, keynote speaking, leadership training, and then we do consulting with small businesses.
And what I forgot to mention is that you also wrote a book, and the name of the book is, I'll let you talk about it for a second.
Yeah, the book is titled "Tighten the Lug Nuts." It's a story in the book. It's and the book was written thinking back over my career and the wonderful people that I met along the way, the experiences that I had that helped me grow and develop as a leader, but as a person, and the wonderful people that helped me along the way. And I thought, why not give back through all those different lessons? And so each chapter is a lesson on a particular management principle, but it's put together in a story form. So in the character that does the narration is Joe Scafone. So that's the name of the character that does the third party. Joe was created years ago in my early days at UPS. Whenever someone would give me an idea or a thought, and you'd sit across from them and say, "Well, that's a good idea, Tom, but what if you looked at this?" I always You always saw that look in their face, like, oh, maybe he doesn't think it's a good idea, or maybe he thought we should have done something different. So I don't know what possessed me, but I just looked at them one day and said, "Well, you think Joe Scafone thinks that's a good idea?" I mean, I that was pretty good to me. But so my thought was not that I didn't think it was a good idea. I was just trying to challenge them in a positive way, not to maybe stop at the first right answer, to maybe look behind that first right answer and see if there's something else or something, else that could be done. Because if you think about a decision that you make, you have to look at it from its widest consequences, and you can potentially hope to find what are some of those unintended consequences. So yeah, so Joe Scafone became a person who was with me most of my career. In fact, at time, people who worked for me and I got to know really well would always say to me, "Hey, I covered this with Joe already. He thinks it's a good idea." I said, "Well, okay, let me hear it first."
It became a thing.
Yeah,
That's so funny. It's kind of like your alter ego, perhaps. I'm
yeah,
not sure.
yeah. And then there is the chapter in the book about how the title came, Tighten the Lug Nuts. But just in a quick synopsis, without giving you too much of the story, when lug nuts are loose on a vehicle, they're important. You can go simply walk over and tighten them, but you get distracted, other things come up. And so now all of a sudden, a day or two later, what was important yesterday becomes urgent today. And in life, both in our personal and professional lives, we can only handle so many urgent things. So tighten the lug nuts.
Tighten the lug nuts. And like sometimes you hear the phrase, the wheels have come off this thing. And so it relates to that, but it also reminds me of a story I have not thought about probably in 50 years. When I was a little kid, my dad had gotten new tires on his 1964 Volkswagen Beetle, and we lived in Brooklyn, and he was driving to Manhattan. So on Monday morning, he got the wheels on Saturday. On Monday, he's driving, and all of a sudden he sees a wheel go by him on the highway going into the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel coming off the BQE. It turns out that they didn't tighten the lug nuts.
There you go.
The wheel came off literally on the highway. He was all right. He pulled off. It was a Volkswagen. They didn't weigh anything. But I mean, that was just crazy. So I love the metaphor. And it also reminds me of like, the small things that you do is how you do everything. The way you do the small things is the way you do everything.
Yeah,
And
no, absolutely right. That's right.
right. So making sure the lug nuts are tight on your vehicle is a very small thing, but could have incredible negative consequences
No,
if you don't
no.
do
And
it.
think about how quickly you can tighten those lug nuts, but then you get distracted. Something else comes up, and then you look back and you're like, wow, yesterday that lug nut was just loose. I could have tightened it today. Now it's a wheel off. I'm on the side of the road. Now I got to wait for someone to come and tow me. And all of a sudden and think about a new supervisor or manager or a small business owner, right? When that happens, it's almost like, I got no luck. Nothing ever goes my way. I can't believe I got to stop everything I'm doing. And you're thinking, well, he could have just tightened the lug nuts yesterday. It would have been when they gone through any of those issues.
That is so funny. And you're right. It's crazy, but that's great. And I'm assuming the book is available on Amazon.
Yes, yes, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. Yes, yes.
Cool. All right, great. And so you're working in UPS. Now, were you tapped to work with the transition of the mailbox, etc.? Like what happened there?
Yeah, so we purchased mailboxes, etc. So we purchased a franchise, or as you know, in franchising, you're either company-owned stores or they're independently owned stores. All of our stores are independently owned at UPS, at the UPS store. So we don't own any stores. That may have changed. I mean, I've been retired there over 10 years, but our plan was never to own the stores. Our plans were to have them all franchised. And so we bought the franchise or mailbox, etc., and then ran a pilot and some tests to find out what the new name would be, and it turned out to be the UPS store.
Cool. And just as a little note to the listeners, you know, if you're looking at a franchise and say they have 100 locations, half of them could be company owned, meaning that the corporate entity owns it and they have a manager running the store as opposed to a franchise owner, and it's usually a very different scenario. But I also share with folks, when you're looking at franchises, look for franchises that have less than 10% company owned stores, or even fewer than that if you could find it. No, none. Actually, one is good because they could use that one store as a test model for whatever things they're rolling out. But if you follow the logic, if they have so many company owned stores, like 50%, when the really good real estate comes up, they'll grab it before their franchise owners, and that's a negative. And so you got to be careful when you're looking. So just a little tidbit, a little thing to share. So when you bought the Mailbox Etc. franchise, how many units did they have then? Do you remember? I know
Yeah, it
some.
was close to 3,500, and we to finish your thought, which was an excellent thought. For us, what we realized the power and the magic of the network was the independent business owner, right? Because one of the things coming from a large corporation like UPS or any large corporation, right? You have, like, I had P&L responsibilities in other areas, but you never have a P&L responsibility the way a small business owner does. And nobody's more all in than a small business owner, right? Because if you think about it, a small business owner takes everything they own in life, slides it across the table and says, okay, Tom, I'm all in. Could be all their savings, it could be part of their retirement, whatever it is, they're all in. And so what ends up happening is you realize these individuals, right, at the end of the day, hit the cash register and the door opens and they pay their people, they pay their vendor, and what's left for them is what they take home to their family. And so we respected so much that independent business owner and that their desire and ability to grow their business. So that's why we always took the approach. We don't want to own stores. We want the magic. We want that independent business owner who's all in to run these stores. And so that's why we chose not to own any stores. And so I think that served us really well. And I think that was a great lesson for us, right? I mean, I would look at these small business owners and marvel and with great respect, wonder if I could even do it. I mean, because I had, Big Brown behind me. I had UPS behind us. And in a corporation, you may miss your business plan, but some other parts are making it. So ultimately the company makes it. Where in that small business, you're it. You've got to be able to do it. So I think that's the respect and that we had as a company and as a franchise, or that we weren't going to we respected that and wanted to maintain that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And I think that, there's books written on this kind of stuff, but if you have a company owned store, it's not company owned, but a franchise owned store compared to, you know, I guess a company owned store that's manager run, that franchise owner or small business owner doesn't have to be a franchise. They're like you're saying, their heart and soul is in it. They got to make it work. As a former franchise owner of two different concepts myself, I mean, you're wearing 11 hats, sometimes 17 hats, and you're making it happen. And there's a lot of satisfaction that comes with that, which is what I really enjoyed about running a business, a small business like that. So that's just a great thing. What challenges did you guys have at the beginning when you were doing the transition to UPS?
Oh, to the UPS store.
Yeah, so you guys bought these mailboxes, etc. And now you had to have everybody change over their trade dress, the logos and the store design. Um, and I'm sure there was pushback on some people's parts. You probably had like all sorts of weird little issues like that.
Well, I mean, we took the approach that we went in. Well, the first thing, so as I said to you in the introduction, so as we grew up in UPS, parent UPS that everybody knows and sees today, you were a driver. So I was part-time. I unloaded trailers, loaded trailers, and then I was a delivery driver, UPS driver. So I understood the business from the ground up. I respected that approach tremendously. And in every job I had going forward, regardless of what it was, the first thing you always do, for me, the first thing I think you always do is start out there trying to understand what happens on that front line, what happens on a day to day. And so the first thing we did when I was tasked with that responsibility was, and the people on my team is, hey, go grab an apron and go work in the store. There's, because that's the only way you understand what happens. When I had the supply chain for UPS, to walk the floor, find out how to pick orders, how do orders drop. If I'm a customer and I order something with another company and we're fulfilling it on behalf of that company, how does it all work? And so that was the first thing we did, is to understand what happens and what happens on a day-to-day, the life of a franchisee in this particular case, and what happens inside a UPS store. Now, remember, we purchased the MBE for probably different reasons than most people would. So for us, what we purchased MBE because if you think about UPS, everybody received packages from UPS, especially at the holidays. But on a daily basis, think about it, Tom. Think about, 30, 20 years ago, nobody knew how to put a package into UPS unless you were a shipper. But how did
Right.
the day-to-day person, the only way you could actually put a package into UPS in the early days was simply through what we call customer counter. You go to you're out, you're a Brooklyn guy, you would go to Maspeth maybe, or, Queen at some point, Long Island or some UPS facility, and you go to their customer counter. So we wanted an access channel for people to put packages into UPS. That was one of the goals. And the second was, alternate deliveries for people who are working, how to, if you couldn't be there for a signature, those kind of things. And so what were the other things that we could do to help not only grow UPS, but have the franchisees grow? So that was the reason behind the purchase of MBE. How do you access UPS? And then how does that MBE location how does it help you as a customer do other things, whether it's, mailbox rentals, but also things like, alternate deliveries, because I have a mailbox, I can get all my packages delivered there.
Right. And so that worked. I mean, it's a great way to do it for UPS stores, because they're at the time their main competitor was either United States Postal Service or FedEx. Other than that, I
Yeah,
don't know if there was too many other,
yeah. I mean,
customer.
you had pack and ship other locations and things like that, or you would start your own independent business. But here you had the value of the brand of MBE, and as the balance in a franchise network is simply the entrepreneurial spirit. Not simply, because it's much more complicated. So let me go back a second. It's the entrepreneurial spirit which you need, what you want, which drives the business, with the consistency you need of every single franchise location, right? So Portland, Maine has to look like Portland, Oregon, and you don't have, so you want the entrepreneurial spirit, you want people to want to do well, to grow their business, to get out in the community, but they have to follow the rules of the franchise network, and you're not allowed to add your own products in there, kind of idea, right? You can't walk into a McDonald's one day and there's pizza being made, right? But no, it has to be a certain, set of services that you offer. So that's the kind of value there. But we also wanted to, think about what are the other things. Now, today's world, if you think about today, from that acquisition happened, look about how returns are handled today. You got an Amazon return, they send you over the barcode, and the next thing you know, he's walking into a UPS store and they're handling returns. And so that's really been a great, addition to the UPS store network, is the way they're world class in handling returns, and probably handle the most returns. I would think. I mean, I'm gone now, but I would say I'm in there all the time when I return.
Well, right, yeah, me too. And I think that must have given a big boost to the stores. I mean, as you're talking, I'm thinking like, Jeff Bezos and Amazon should buy UPS.
Well, they
There
got
was
their own delivery service going now, but
right, right. I mean, there was a rumor that they were talking about buying the post office or something. I don't know if that was ever really true or just a urban myth,
oh, who knows? Who knows?
but
Who knows
I
what you can believe anymore?
can't believe anything. So funny. We're just talking about that this weekend. It's with AI, you can't even believe the words that are coming out of somebody's mouth. It's amazing. But so that's interesting to me. The what do you remember what year that was when they did the transaction buying MBE?
Yeah, I think it was somewhere around 1999,
Yeah.
2000 range. So
I mean, and I think most of America now there's a UPS store, nearby. If where I live, there's two, one on each end of town. So
Yeah, I'll tell you what, there was always a joke every time new strip mall was going up, it was going to be the hair, nails, and a UPS store, and then probably a cleaners at some point. So,
right, it's so true. Because there's like a new development. I'm in Florida, and they're building like crazy because of the amount of people that moved down here, and they did open a strip mall, and like the first place was a UPS store. I was like, oh, that makes sense. And I use the UPS store myself as my mailbox for business, and it works for that reason. So so you're a business manager. What advice do you have for someone who's in a business, whether it's a franchise or not? They're wearing 17 hats, they're chasing their tail. What advice do you have for that person? They're going crazy. How could they help themselves?
well, I think the lesson that I think is important for not only that individual you just described, but all people in business or even in your life. I mean, I always say that don't allow your strength to become your weakness. And if you think about a small business owner, what's their strength? Their strength is nobody's all more in than they are. Nobody knows business better than they do. Nobody cares about the business more than they do. What's their weakness? Nobody's more all in than they are. Nobody knows business better than they do. Nobody cares more than they do. So what ends up happening is now it's time to add that second employee, for example, but they just don't know how to do it, or they're unwilling to give up any of that authority. And so their strength becomes their weakness. And I think as small business owners, you know, think about they're so tactical, like they know the day to day, they can run the business. Well, at some point they have to take a step back and become more strategic. What's this business going to look like 6 months from now, a year from now? What's the next product I want to offer inside of my store? Well, when do I think the next time to add an employee is? And that's a strategic view of things. And so it's not that they're not capable of doing that. It's their strength of being tactical and day to day and understanding the business becomes now the weakness of them taking a step back and becoming strategic. So I think that would be one thing I would say is don't allow your strength to become your weakness. And it's the same as a leader, right? If your leader is, you get to the spot first, you're high energy, you're coming up with new ideas. What's your weakness? You get to the spot first, you're high energy, you get to the spot first and you start to overwhelm your people because you're answering their thoughts before they're finished giving you their thoughts because you got to the spot and you understand it. And so I think, as leaders, we have to make sure that our strength's not becoming our weakness as well.
What advice do you have for somebody who has a problem delegating?
Well, I think that it comes down to the understanding of what it is that you're delegating. I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing is you have to understand true empowerment is when people discipline themselves. So if you've given me the authority that goes with the responsibility, I'm going to take that responsibility and now it's going to be my own, right? So now I'm going to be that person that's more upset that I failed and you're upset about me failing. I'm going to be that person that's apologizing that I can't believe this didn't work out. That means I'm empowered, right? When I'm disciplining myself, when I'm upset about the result, well, then I'm empowered, right? If you don't do that, then all what you have now is just hired hands. You have people that are employees. You want people that want to be part of your organization. They're acting like owners. They're thinking like, if I own this business, this is what I would do. It's what they do when no one's watching that counts. What they're doing when no one's watching is acting as if they're the owner and taking responsibility for what's going on. So you have to think about that. And so when you think about delegating that way, that I'm now empowering someone who's going to look at my business as if they own it, is going to care about my business like it's their own. I've just now multiplied 100%. I went from 1 to 2 people who are thinking like owners. Well, that's power. if you
Yeah.
got that going on. You never get there, though, if you don't give me the authority, it goes with my responsibility, and you don't empower me to do that. Well, then I'm just going to be the hired hand. Doesn't matter what I think. You're going to tell me what to do anyway. Doesn't matter. You're never going to give me the authority to make that decision. So I think that's what you have to the first step in delegating is you have to accept the delegation as the person being the delegator. You have to believe this is right. You have to give me the authority. And then you set parameters. Okay, Tom, this is where your authority is to make this decision up to this amount, whatever. If a person, for example, nobody wants to make a decision worth for $1,000. So you're helping them by not giving them the authority to make a decision of that kind of magnitude. So nobody, but if it's a $25 return or a $35 rebate, or okay, we'll reship it, whatever it is. I mean, think about some of the decisions that an owner of a small business wants to be involved in. You start to scratch your head and you're thinking, like, you really want to be involved in that? It's like $1.75, but they got to come and ask your opinion for the $1.75, right?
Right, right. That's great, and it's good advice. I think it's also a matter of trust, but not really trusting the employee. It's trusting yourself
Yeah.
to allow them to make a mistake, and
Yes.
and it's okay. I mean, it's almost like tuition. Like if they make a mistake, okay, now they learn, and now you got a really good staff member. So
Yeah.
that's
Hey, look, the rule is you're going to make mistakes. Make them small, make them fast, and move on.
yeah, exactly right. So what's a myth that you could bust right now, either about logistics or franchising? Anything come to mind?
Well, I can tell you from managing people, the myth that you always hear when you have someone who maybe is not a right fit or struggling, and then you sit there and someone says, "Well, the devil we know is better than the devil we don't know." And you think about that. I mean, how many times have you heard that, right? Well, I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, because what ends up happening is that means you stay with that same individual making the same mistakes because the devil I know is better than the devil I don't know. Well, maybe the devil that you don't know that you hire ends up being a better employee, a person that can grow with inside your organization, that brings new ideas to your organization, brings energy to your organization. But you never get to that because you're sitting there thinking, well, this is better. I don't have to train a new person. I don't have to go through the interview process. They know enough about my business, but yeah, they're not going to improve my business or make it any better. So that old myth of the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know, I don't necessarily agree with that one at all.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. It makes me think about an old cliche that my father used to say, like when you got like a car and it's 10 years old and something breaks and it's like it's a major thing. My father would say, well, if you fix it, at least you know what you got.
Right.
And I'm like, as I grew up later in life, I'm like, that doesn't really make sense because now I still have a 10-year-old car that's bound to have another problem. It'd be much better if I sold that car, traded it in, and get a brand new car. It's going to cost me more, but now I got the new technology, I got the extra this and the extra that. So that's always been a thing in my family. When we kind of stall on a decision, my wife looks at me and says, "You know what you got? Is that where you're going?" I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Well, and I think when people look, I think, look, your first thought is always to help that person improve. And because turnover is a difficult cost in business, and you want to keep that consistency, right? Because you want people to feel good about being in your organization, to want to be part of your organization. But at some point, though, when all the different things that you've worked on and the many conversations that you've had along the way and the many times you've tried, there are going to be that small percentage of people who just don't fit, and the reality is they're probably not happy either. I mean, they're not happy, you're not happy. And but at some point you have to have that conversation, and it's a difficult conversation. And whoever tells you it's not has never had it. It's a difficult conversation because they have to go home and speak to their family, and so you try. I do agree. You should always work to find a way to help them improve or help them understand what it is that they want to accomplish and how come their goals and your goals are kind of aligning. But then at some point you have to have that difficult conversation that it may be time for us to part ways. And that's where that all, well, the devil I know is better than the devil I don't know conversation comes in. And some people will say, well, you know what, though, let's wait a little longer. Well, at some point, everyone else in your organization is looking at you thinking, well, when are they going to finally make a decision here? Because we're doing all the work of what that person should have been doing, but no one's holding them accountable. So it's a delicate balance. I understand that completely. And like I said, asking someone to leave the organization or having that difficult discipline conversation is never an easy one. But unfortunately, sometimes it has to happen. So that myth of the devil, is better than the devil you don't know, to me is going to come back anyway. So you might as well just address it, understand it, and and move on from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Rocky, I really appreciate you being on the show. Where can people pick up the book, or where can people find more about you, and also, of course, Tighten the Lug Nuts?
So I think the easiest way to go is our website, tightenthelugnuts.com. Try to make it simple as I can. And from there, you can go to, for example, you can go into our keynote speaking and the many keynotes. We're being signed now for the second half of the year from September on. Had some good ones, some good dates already. I have a group of keynotes that I do, but I also can tailor a keynote for an individual conference, depending on what their conference theme is and what they're trying to accomplish at their conference. We have leadership development classes that we give both for example, new management. I wrote one for a couple franchise organizations. So I can tailor things for what individuals need. And then we also do some coaching and some small business consulting as well. So that you can get all that from tightenthelugnuts.com. I also have a 3 to 5 minute podcast that comes out on Tuesdays and Thursday mornings. It's about 140 episodes, I think, just short of 140 episodes on different various topics. And it's short because to me it's a hard time. I think if you got a 3 to 5 minute one on a topic, you may go through the library and say, hey, I have the difficult conversation, or I need to talk about succession planning. You could start there with a 3 to 5 minute quick podcast on it and thoughts on it, and then move to the book or move to uh, something else inside our organization or through our websites.
Love it. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And all that information will be in the show notes as well. So go to the franchiseacademy.com, and everything there about Rocco's book and his consulting practice and speaking and the Forbes articles will all be on our show site. And again, Rocky, thank you so much for being on the show, and we'll see you soon.